Leica M11P, Leica M10R, Leica M7. We're talking like a 20-year difference between these three models. Of course, this is a film M. A lot of people, as you could probably tell by the title of this video, are currently looking at the M11 lineup and maybe considering the M10 lineup for their first digital M, or maybe you are currently shooting with an M10, like an M9 or an M240, and are thinking, shoot, is it time to upgrade from that 24 megapixel sensor? And so I thought I would do a video because I'm just about ready to return the M11P back to Leica. So thank you so much, Leica Global, for loaning this to me. I've had it since the summer, and those who've been following me for a while know that I was in Italy teaching, and I got the Deluxe 8, which is really what I wanted to review. And I said, if you can throw in something else that I can have fun shooting with, they sent the M11P, so thank you so much for that, as well as the 35 Summicron, the Apo right here. So this is an amazing lens. I am a 28mm shooter, so I did struggle at times to get used to the 35mm, which sounds weird because I know a lot of people, that's their go-to focal length, but for me, shooting 28 that's just how I see the world. And so fantastic lens. I did a quick test comparing this against the 35 Apo in the L mount, and so I'll talk about my results in a different video. But fantastic lens. Sad that I'm returning it back, and sad that I'm returning the M11P back, but I also have the M10R. And so in this video, let's just quickly talk about the M11 lineup, because I think it's a really interesting lineup from the M11, M11P, the M11D, and the M11 monochrome, and then now we have the new glossy black version. And so people may be wondering, well, what's the difference between them all, and does it make sense to get the older generation? So currently right now, so it's December 2024, the M11 is $899.5, right? So it's just under $9,000. Now the next level up, there's now two cameras. We have the M11P, now P stands for professional, which tends to be the stealther one, like they won't put the red dot there, and they usually from the M10 to the M10P, from the M9 to the M9P, like the P is a professional model, it's a little bit more stealth, and usually there's a slight upgrade. And the major upgrade between the M11 and the M11P was basically internal memory 256 versus 64, as well as the CAI technology in here. And we won't go into it in detail, but it basically embeds, there's a chip in here that embeds your kind of like your metadata, but it's baked into the file that kind of follows the image no matter where it goes. And so and there's other smaller little updates, but those are the two main updates that you got. And for only $200 more. So unless you were intent on the red dot, I would pay the $200 and just get the M11P. And if you really want that red dot, you can get either directly from Leica, you can order that probably, or someone who probably makes them on eBay or something like that and get that red dot if it's that important to you. But to me, that $200 price difference is worth it. Now, what's really unique is that the M11 Glossy Black, or like black paint, but they're calling it glossy black. From moving forward, we're going to call it black paint. That is unique, and that's something I think a lot of people always wanted, because all of the M11 with the black finish up to now has used an aluminum top plate. Now, up to this point, pretty much almost every Leica M from film, from the M7, all the way through the digital M's and all the recent film M's, all use brass top and bottom plate. And that's when you get the brassing, right? Now, the black chrome and the silver chrome is very difficult for it to come off. So with black paint, it starts to brass much easier. The M11 is the first series in a very long time. I think the last one was the M6, where they weren't using, and of course there were some limited edition, like I think the M262 also used aluminum, but in terms of the main series, they've always used aluminum, and Leica's point was it's a selling point. It keeps the camera lighter, and the M11P definitely is lighter, but I don't mind the extra weight of having a brass top plate. The M11 black paint now uses a brass top plate with black paint. And for instance, the M10R black paint is worth quite a bit of money. I think last time I checked, it's maybe 10 or 11,000 US used. So it's gone up in value compared to the M10R, which is maybe around $6,000, $6,500 used for a regular. So I mean that's $3, $4, $5,000 more because it's a black paint version. The M11 black paint, some assume that it is based on an M11P, and it is not. It is based on an M11. So it still has a 64 gigabyte internal memory and not the 256 that's on the M11P. So it's the M11 with black paint, but with a brass top. And that is also $200 more. So the M11P and the M11 black paint is the same price at $9,200. Now for me, I would be torn because having 256 internal is nice because I always shoot recently anyways. Oh, I took the memory card up, but I usually shoot with a 256 memory card. And so having, basically it's like having two memory cards, right? One is a backup or one, however you want to separate it, JPEG and DNG on the other. But basically having 512 in an M is amazing. Having basically a dual card setup. But having a brass top is awesome. So up to this point, before the M11 black paint, the only way you can get a brass top plate was by getting the silver. And now some people just don't want the silver. And so if you were a M11 shooter, but you wanted a brass top plate, up till now, you couldn't get it. Now, I would love to see an M11P black paint, and they may do that at the very end of the cycle, and they'd have to call it something else, and they'd have to distinguish it, because on the outside it would look almost exactly the same as that M11 Glossy Black, and so maybe a different leatherette. And so $9,000 for the M11, $9,200 for the M11 Glossy Black, or the M11P. And then for the M11D, which is the one without the screen in the back, which is also really cool, is $9,400 or $9,395. So $9,400. So you pay another $200 on top of the M11P or the M11 Gloss Black paint. And then finally, the most expensive M11 is the M11 Monochrome, and that's been the case for a long time. Basically, it's $9,500 or $9,495. And so you have $9,000 to $9,500. There's a $500 price difference from the M11, and then $200 more for the M11 Glossy Black or the M11P, and then another $200 for the M11D, and then finally another $100 for the, I wouldn't call it a top of the line just because it's the most expensive. I would say the flagship camera is still the M11P, and is the most functional, has the most powerful features of all of them. The M11D is just unique because it doesn't have a rear screen, and the M11 Monochrome is unique because it only shoots in black and white. So this is the flagship, but it's not the most expensive at $9,200. And now it matches the price of the Glossy Black. And so that's the price breakdown of the M11 series. So for me, I think the M11P is still the best deal. If you really want the brass top plate, then you have to go with the silver chrome. Then that is brass. There is no bottom plate on these anymore. It's just because you get the quick access to the battery. I did not like the bottom plate on the digital M's until it was gone, and then all of a sudden it's kind of nostalgic. It kind of feels like a film M. So you open it up like this, and the battery's in here. Now the battery has been improved over the previous generation, and so that's a huge bonus. Now let's talk a bit about the M10R. So the M10R, this is my personal copy here. You get them anywhere between $5,500 to $6,500 based on the condition as well as the finish. And as I've talked about the black paint, it's like over $10,000. And so of the previous generation M10s, the regular M10, the M10 Monochrome, the M10P, the M10D, and the M10R. This is the only one. The R stood for like resolution, I guess. It has a 40 megapixel sensor, and the only other camera that had that 40 megapixel sensor is the M10 Monochrome, but it's not in color. And so in terms of a color 40 megapixel sensor, this is the only Leica that ever had that sensor. So it's a very unique look. And so if you want to move up from an M9 or M240 or even an M10 to a higher resolution digital M, instead of considering the M11 line, you can consider the M10R, and this is kind of a fan favorite, kind of a secret fan favorite. I know a lot of people at Leica that have the M10R, and they're like, even if they upgrade to an M11, they're going to keep this because it's such a unique camera. It is the last digital Leica that still, it's like the last of that old guard of brass top and bottom plate. Moving forward, I think it would be cool. Leica could probably still put a bottom plate on here, and you can decide if you want to use it or not. I think that would be kind of cool. But from as far as we know, this is the last top and bottom brass plate Leica, and this is a high resolution sensor. It's 40 megapixels. The other ones, they're all 24. Now you can get an M10 for around $5,000. So if you are just wanting to get into a digital M, then I say right now the M10 is the best deal. In terms of used, I say because the M11 Glossy Black or the black paint is only $200 more, and it's a dream of a lot of Leica M shooters to get a black paint Leica, I think the M11 used, I think you're going to start seeing a huge drop in price. I think I kind of looked around and I was seeing like $6,200, and so that's a pretty big drop. It's almost a $3,000 price drop. So if you're looking for use, I say M11, because a lot of M11 shooters are probably just selling it now and paying the extra $200 and upgrading to the M11 black paint. And that price, that $200 price difference in the next, say, 2 or 3 years, you're going to start seeing that. Sure, at retail there's a $200 price difference, but year over year you're going to start saying, oh, now there's a $500 price difference. Oh, now there's a $1,000 price difference. Now I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see, a $2,000 price difference between the M11 and the M11 black paint. And so in terms of investment, because Leica's both film and digital do hold their value over time, but obviously digital doesn't hold as much value. This is from 2002, and it's still used, maybe selling for about $3,500. So it's really retaining its value over time. Digital doesn't do as well, but comparing a Leica to a Sony probably drops in value like by half immediately, right? In terms of investment, I think M11 black paint is the way to go if you are buying new. If you're buying used, I say M11, it'll be at a lower price point, or get an M11-P. I think that's where you got all the upgrades from the M11. And if you're looking for an M11D or M11 monochrome, obviously those are very niche cameras. I still say the M10D is probably the way to go, because again, it has the old style, brass top and bottom plate. It has that little thumb rest that you would get on a film camera on the M10D. And at first I thought it was a gimmick, but all my colleagues that shoot with the M10D, like Pat Domingo, as well as Justin Mott, they all have the M10D, even though they had the option to shoot with an M11. Because of this little thumb rest, it actually holds the camera for you. See how you just leave your thumb here, and now it's gives you a little bit of holding power when you have your thumb back here. And so I think for a lot of reasons, people still love the M10 series, and that's good for Leica, right? But of all the M10 series, I think the M10D is still holding its value really well. The M10 monochrome is, and the M10R is really holding its value. If you want to get a used M10 series, the deals are on the M10. You can pick them up for around $5,000 or so, again, depending on the condition. I highly recommend the M10R. And then if you are, again, finally getting into the M11 series, I say other than the specialty ones, get an M11-P. Unless you really want a black paint, then I think it's a no-brainer. M11 Glossy Black is the way to go. And so thank you again, Leica, for loaning the M11-P to me for basically 6 months. So that's a pretty long-term loan. And when I ask manufacturers for long-term loans, I know it takes it out of their pool for that length of time. So it takes a lot of faith as well as value in me to be able to borrow it for that length of time. And the 35 Apo, amazing lens. And so thank you for Leica for loaning it to me. As well, I thought I would just quickly talk again about my strap. For those of you who don't know, I did collaborate with Kupf, which is an Austrian brand. They make the official rope straps for Leica. And we decided to make I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's a BHT logo right there in the corner. I'm calling this the Orange Armor. You can buy either from Camera West, Leica Store San Francisco. You can buy some from Revolver Coffee online here in Vancouver. And you can buy it officially from the Kupf website. I'll put all the links down below. And I do have some myself. So if you know me personally, let me know and I can leave one aside for you. So thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you soon, and happy shooting.